Good evening and welcome to the end of the first weekend of season 10 of the festival. We hope you've been enjoying the screenings, conversations, and events, and that tonight is no different. I'm Caitlin, this is Emily, your temporary host for the night and the co-founders of the festival.
We're thrilled to have this conversation with Stephen McQueen and Channing Godfrey Peoples around filmmaking, prestige and evolving television, and specifically the film series Small Axe.
Getting Steve to season 10 is a great example of the things that are possible because we are virtual. I'm not saying we can't tempt him to join us in Austin someday, but with living in England and a very full schedule, I think it would be a bit of a cluster. So getting to pair him with a Texan feels like a very ATX TV festival combo, and we couldn't be prouder to present it with Amazon Prime and hear all of their insights and wisdoms.
Before they get started, we wanted to show you what Small Axe is all about with a trailer, and make sure you all know that the full film series is available now on Amazon Prime. We know after this conversation, you're going to want to go watch them all immediately. So enjoy.
Check 1, 2. Shout out all the ladies worldwide.
There's much to play, 'cause I know you feel the same. I can see it in your eyes, 'cause I got no time to live this life, 'cause I got no time to play your city.
These are new types of human beings. They are not demoralized or defeated persons. They are leaders, but are rooted deep among those they lead.
We mustn't be victims, but protagonists of our stories.
Don't you think it's time things were different?
As individuals, we have an impossible battle. As a collective, we stand a chance.
If you are a big tree, we are the small axe, sharpened to cut you down.
Hi, I'm Channing Godfrey Peoples. I'm the writer-director of Miss Juneteenth, and I'm delighted to be here with Steve McQueen.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, Steve.
Pleasure to meet you.
You know, it is so wonderful to meet you.
It's such a wonderful film, Miss Juneteenth.
Thank you so much. I mean,
yeah.
you know, I've expressed this, but it's such a joy to meet you because I've absolutely been informed and inspired by your work over the years. You are the consummate artist, and you know, I'm so grateful for this conversation. For me, your films have always spoken to the humanity of the very kind of stories that you've taken on, and I was so grateful for Small Axe. I have to tell you, I was bowled over by the sense of authenticity. It is a person that is telling this story that intimately knows this world. And it's something that I strive for and have been inspired by in my work. And I think you also brought us into a community that we haven't often seen, if at all, on screen. So I wanted to tell you thank you for that. And I'm delighted to have this conversation with you.
Oh, pleasure. Well, thank you very much for the wonderful introduction. My goodness, yeah, great.
I want to start. I have so many questions for you, but you know, this is a question that you've probably gotten very often. But I want to start by asking about the origins of this story, because I feel like, in conceiving of my film that was about the community in which I grew up, it's a film I feel like that had been with me in my entire life from childhood on. I just found myself watching stories and people around me, and they became characters in my head, and I was informed by the world and by history in the community in which I grew up. And so I wanted to see what the origins of this story was for you.
Well, your movie's fantastic, and so is Nicole Beharie, who I've worked with, and it's great. Yeah, it was a must and need and a want, really. It was essential for me to sort of make these films because in London, in the UK rather, these movies or these stories hadn't really been told. So it wasn't necessarily a responsibility as a passion. And it was a British story, which was universal. Just you talk about things that you knew or things that you grew up with. It's so fascinating to me that something could be so specific and so precise, but at the same time be universal. That was a wonderful thing to sort of to discover and to interpret on film. Rituals, community, love, and also it was just a situation where I really had to make this, and because these stories have been sort of in a way lost. Because a lot of people, when I started this project 11 years ago, so I started 11 years ago, more in fact.
Wow.
But it just didn't have an opportunity to find its feet. And I actually myself wasn't ready. I wasn't actually mature myself. I wasn't, it's almost like seeing your parents as a teenager and seeing your parents as I am now. There's an amount of knowledge and amount of sort of experience I have to appreciate them more and to understand them more. So, it was one of those situations where now was the time.
And so in doing that, because it sounds like you say it was a passion, but it also sounds like such a huge undertaking and responsibility, in taking that vision and being able to relay that vision to your creatives, and you cast so beautifully, and we'll get to that. But how were you able to relay that vision so authentically to your creatives to have these films come out in the way that they did?
Well, first of all, as far as responsibility, all that kind of stuff, I want that burden. I love that burden. Put it on my shoulders. I'll carry it. I want it, So it's a pleasure. It's an honor, in fact. And as far as the second part of your question, as far as how did I get the films? Excuse me, I lost it because I got into some of the burden. The second part of your question was, sorry,
was about the creatives and how you communicated with the creatives to bring this sense of authenticity, because it's just so authentic and so specific.
A lot of research. Of course, my first-hand account and Court's first-hand account, co-writer of Red, White, and Blue and Lovers Rock, and a lot of people who did a lot of research. We had a lot of Black people, I said, people whose mothers and fathers and grandfathers and grandparents, mothers, and were involved. So everyone brought their things in, but also there was a certain kind of research, of course, and to find things which just like in wardrobe and art direction. So all those things that were brought to me, and I'd forgotten about. Oh my God, yes, that's that, and it's interesting when the puzzle is brought to life as such, because often a lot of things are in your memory, and even smell. I think smell is when I was obviously with food and stuff, but smell brings about so much visualization. So using all the senses to sort of get to some kind of authentic sort of vision of what I wanted to do.
I could smell the food. And that was one of the things that struck me first. Because for Black people, food is such an essential part of our cultures and, inform who we are specifically.
People who don't cook anymore, people don't forget to cook, they go and do takeout or whatever. It's interesting how, how people, have not, that sometimes that hasn't been passed on. How to cook, how to season food, vegetables. It's very important that we keep those, nutritious sort of memories and nutritious sort of things with us. It's very important.
I was really, so many of the scenes, haven't left my mind, and I play them over and over again. But I was just thinking about, when you talk about the food, especially like the women cooking in the kitchen in Lovers Rock, and it's almost like they're cooking in rhythm. Their hands are moving in a way that it feels like there's so many generations of knowledge are being passed down. It's almost automatic,
Absolutely.
Like I felt it and I loved it so completely, and it reminded me of many of my own experiences. And that's what I love about Small Axe. I feel like it's such a, the stories are so specific. They're specific to this West Indian Black community in a specific time, in these specific times. But as a Black person, there's so many commonalities that I found,
Totally. Absolutely.
In the sense of community, you know, and communing through music, like there's just so much that the food, Black joy, you know, Black pain, there's so much that I latched onto. So
I mean, we're brothers and sisters. We were put in different parts of the world, but there was something which, you know, connects us and links us in a very sort of, you know, beautiful way. It is something that can't die, something that can't be killed, something that can't be erased. And the similarities are deafening, you know, blinding. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I'll kind of get into each one more specifically, but can I ask you pretty quickly, what is your
nice to have a conversation with you, I got to say. It's great to chat. Doesn't necessarily have to be questions. We just, you know, it's just like I'm vibing. We're playing, you know, great.
Yes, no, I've been waiting to have this conversation for a while. I'm so curious to know about your process of working with actors across the board, but in particular in these stories, because the actors are just so well cast and so specific to their roles and just so natural and authentic. And so I just wanted to kind of get your perspective on working with actors.
The first thing is trust. I think, well, the first thing is choosing the person, of course. But the most important thing is trust and listening, because it's a collaboration. I mean, bringing things to the table and how one can actually offer something to someone, but also how they could take it and run with it. I mean, I always try to get an actor to a certain point to be a sphere. And what I mean by that is it gets to that the actor can get to a certain place where whatever they do is correct, meaning that they can roll this way or roll that way or whatever. They become a sphere. So it doesn't matter what they say or how they do it. They're there. That's what the character would do. They can't do anything wrong. But it obviously takes time to get to be that sphere. But when they're in a sphere, they become the character, and however they roll is correct. It's beautiful. If you could get to that moment where, you know, and also as a director, for me, the best thing to do, well, the dream, of course, is to say action and cut. And then that's it. That's the dream. I don't want to interfere. I don't want to be directorial. All the hard work has to be done, for me at least, before we get onto set. And of course, there's opportunities and time to sort of correct and help and support and collaborate in certain situations, of course. But it's about trying to get to that moment. And of course, it doesn't often. It's like having something, you know, standing up in the wind and it falls down again. You pick it up and it wobbles about and it falls down again. But it's those moments where it does do the miraculous, where it's all worthwhile. So that's the process of acting, is to help them to become the sphere where whatever they do is correct.
Listen, I want to tell you about the system in here. Yes. So listen me and listen me careful. There's enough talk of ism and schism and racism. Me not defend nobody against the charge of racism, because Rasta don't discriminate. But the main thing you have to worry about in this country is the system of class and classism. When the children of Africa was dragged to the West, it's because of money, because of the cheap labor benefiting the upper classes, lining them pockets. I know the system still, the poor little pitney them in an inner city school, them can't make much progress. Otherwise, who go build them house? Who go drive them bus? Some of them make it through, yes, but only a few of them. And that is why me keep going on about education. You have to supplement when them teach you by teaching yourself.
Teaching how then, man?
You have to unlearn where you have learned. And you can start by reading. Reading the scholars of fewy people. That will turn your life around.
It's my job to support and encourage. And one last thing, and also to make an environment where the actor feels safe. What I mean by that is from the catering, from the wardrobe, from the electricians, from the sound people to the character, everyone is on the same path. So when an actor comes into the environment, because actors, I feel often, they're very kind of, they're very skittish in a way, sometimes actors. They can sense, they can smell when something's up. So if you have an environment where everybody is on the same vibe, everyone is supporting, everyone's there for the right reasons, then there's a chance for them to sort of go for it. There's a chance for them to actually take chances, take risks, you know, to fail and to fail better, you know?
Absolutely. I love that. I also, you know, one of the things that I found in my film, because my leads, you know, there were a lot of people from Black Texas in the film, but like Nicole Beharie, for instance, wasn't from Texas. The young man who plays her husband is from Texas, but from a different part of Texas. But in what I found was in surrounding them in the environment, like we shot in the different like locations in which I grew up and rode around, you know, that informed their journeys so much. And so I felt like I saw that in Small Axe and in this really magnificent way, because you have, these are period pieces essentially. And it was so impeccably done and impeccably detailed. I was like, how could the actors not feel immersed in these particular worlds?
Yeah. Well, they yeah, I mean, also the people bouncing and vibing off each other, but also what helped was that their parents or their grandparents, they kind of recognized a certain thing, you know? And that was the, you know, a lot of the people, you talk to people, discuss people, but also they have their own, I mean, for example, oh my goodness gracious, there was, I can't remember that. There's one character whose father had a sound system, for example, in Lovers Rock, so she knew all about that. Or there was another person who sort of, you know, was in the kitchen all the time with her grandmother, so she knew all about that. So it became so, they felt also as Black people to be on a set with, you know, a lot of heads of the department who are Black, and to feel comfortable and to feel that they could do anything. That's what happened. So people just sort of, you know, are rather than, or be rather than have to be someone else or act in a certain way. The body is different. The body language is different. So when they're in an environment where they're comfortable, things actually are allowed to sort of, what can I say, things are allowed to sort of develop.
I love that so completely when you say people are just being, you know, like I'm thinking about like in Miss Juneteenth, there's a Black funeral home and it's owned by family, friends, you know, and it's been passed down through the generations. And like the woman who does, you know, makeup there on the bodies, you know, I affectionately call her Granny, you know, in the community, everybody is Granny or aunt or uncle, you know. She's there making sure that it looks realistic in the film. You know, it's a very community way of working.
Well, I think it's the South is not so, again, it's the South is not so far from the West Indies. It's a similar kind of, you know, it's rural. You know, it's a different, it's not, you know, it's not a city folk, it's rural. It's about the family, it's about the land, it's about community, it's about, you know, church and everything else. I mean, it's a similar situation, you know.
I love that so completely. I am dying to ask you this question. I want to know, you're like, yes. Can you speak to your process of like choosing where you want to move the camera or not to move the camera?
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, this is really good. This is cool. This is really cool. Oh, no, this is really cool. This is the thing. I grew up, you know, I could draw at a very early age. I could, that was my talent. I'm dyslexic, so school was very difficult for me, but I could always draw. And it was kind of like at a certain point become undeniable. This guy could draw, I could draw. So that was my out. Art was my out of a situation where it wasn't so supportive at school. So perspective and the frame as such was happening to me very early on. So it was all about perspective. And then, you know, progress from a crayon to a paintbrush or a painter, I painted at art school, then I got the camera. So it was almost like an evolution. So where to move the camera, it excites me sometimes because I remember something, I'm looking, it's there, I know it's there. And it's often in the most, it's often in the most peculiar places. So often it's right underneath your nose. You're looking this and this, but it's not about being unconventional. It's actually being truthful. Where does the camera want to be? Where does, what perspective, how do I see things? So, you know, you have the whole of sort of say, okay, film history in your head, if you will, but you're limited. If you also, so it's exciting. So often is the case, what do I want to say? Often is the case that limitation is freedom. Limitation is freedom, because then you don't have as many possibilities. So therefore, okay, this is it, okay, this is it, okay, and therefore you can set the camera where you want. And also, it's just about looking and looking and looking, and it's there. I know it's there. I know it's there. I know it's there. I know it's there. And look and look and look. Keep on looking, and it's there. My process, it's just it's what makes sense, what excites me, what can an image tell? Also, the economics of the frame. Maybe I could say 3 things with that one camera angle. 4 things maybe, because something in the background, something in the foreground, something in the middle, something one passing. So all those things excite me. I'm going on a bit because because I love to be economic, because often time and space. So it's all about the economics of the frame. I'll shut up. Sorry.
Do not shut up. I am with you.
Only when I get excited.
No. I talk a lot. I'm from the South, but I mean, I've loved everything you said, and I'm so appreciative of it and can sense every bit of it in your work. But, you know, I was watching Lovers Rock, and I've watched it probably too many times now, but it's clearly like
it's becoming like a record. No, people watching it like, yeah. No,
is that what it is? Well, I watch it, and you have this feeling that this storyteller is inside of the narrative. Like they are in this experience. And I felt like, I remember when I watched it the first time, and I'm trying to think when Silly Games came on, and I was like, okay, so I'm here. This is like call and response. You know, I was feeling like this energy and this spirit. And then when Mercury Sound came on, my heart was beating fast. And I was like, see, that's when you know that this is a great film, when you are there in the narrative, like with these characters. I don't even want to call them characters, with these human beings, you know, having this experience with them. And so I was really, really grateful for that. And so I wanted to, you know, I know that you've talked about like, you know, decisions about the camera and where the camera should move or not to move very specifically. But in this particular instance, can you give an example of how you made choices about where the camera moves? Because I can't even conceive of how you did that.
I work with an amazing young cinematographer, Xavier, and he's from Antigua, and he's an amazing bloke, man, and young guy. And he, what's interesting about Xavier is that he is a skater, but also he's a sailor. So he has an amazing sense of balance, amazing sense of accurately, you know, he has an amazing sense of balance. Also, you know, being in that room, actually, we shot that. We started Lovers Rock, I think, the day before Carnival. So Xavier had never been to Notting Hill Carnival in London, you know, and he's a Carnival guy because he's from Antigua. He came back mash up. I don't know what time he came back. Right. So he had the vibe. He had the vibe. Yeah, absolutely. So to be in that, you know, with those people, to be in that room, and to be a black man with a camera as well, you know, is a different thing. Shooting black people. And the vibe and how he you know, I was on a microphone with him, but often he was moving with the situation, finding it with the situation, because you're in the milieu of the situation. So, you know, I was on a mic with him, say this, but when you're there, you got to see it. And of course, he can see that. That's Sherbet's field of reference. My field of reference is, you know, 180, of course. So I could record it on the mic. But when he's in there, and he's just extraordinary. So we were communicating, but at the same time, he has a, you know, he's beautiful. He's a beautiful man. I think that's the thing. When you have a beautiful human being and he appreciates other human beings, and he could witness and he can recognize something which is gorgeous, when other people might think it's not gorgeous, that's when you got something. That's the thing. And to vibe with him and to talk with him and to sort of direct him in a way, it's ammo. He's amazing. So it's about being beautiful and recognizing beauty. And I think doing something beautiful is not easy, because what it is, there's a lot of kitsch. There's a lot of like, but beautiful is humanity. That's what it is, and that's what what kind of eye he's got. So I'm very pleased for him.
I definitely felt that. Like I felt like it was an energy exchange between the two of you, you know. And I was like, how much of this is very specific, and it felt like a very
wasn't planned.
Thank you.
Spontaneous. You can't plan that.
Thank you.
You got to be in your left, right. No, look at that. No. You're seeing it, but he's seeing it too. So when he's in a flow, I don't want to disturb, but at the same time, say, no, because his field of reference is only that. My field of reference is that. So I go, no, left, right. Go back to that guy. So it's a beautiful dance. It's a beautiful dance.
Yes. And dance is the best way to describe it. Like we have a dance bar scene in Miss Juneteenth, and it was similar in that it was like my cinematographer, Daniel Patterson, you know, it was similar, and it was an energy exchange. You know, you go in and like, we were using real folks too from the community. So, you know, it's just finding things, you know, finding where the energy is and moving around energetically. So I felt that. And I love, like, you know, I told you I've watched Lovers Rock too many times, but I'll just go to Mercury Sound sometimes and just.
I think there's the track Kunta Kinte when they put needle on the record and they go mad. There's the dub track.
Gosh.
Yeah.
It's so. You go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. It's a kind of cleansing. It's a kind of spiritual. I mean, like I said, you know, a situation with Black young people at that time, if they hadn't had that, if they didn't have those dances, there'd have been a real huge mental health problem, a deep psychosis. Yes. Absolutely. To release, to be.
And it, you know, I love that you say that, to release and be, because when I watch it, you know, I instantly, the first time I watched it, I went, wow, I love us. I love Black people. It was that kind of moment. And then in watching it, and I feel this way throughout the film, is that there feels like, you know, there's this question about, you know, that I feel like, or I feel like I've constantly had, you know, in my community, about what does it mean for Black people to be carefree? Like, when do we get to be carefree? You know, and like, I watch scenes like that in Lovers Rock, and it just feels like there's a sense of like freedom, you know, that is happening. And I don't know, it's just so beautifully captured.
But also to be seen. I had this woman come up to me, you know, about a month after, and she said to me, Steve, thank you very much for allowing me to be seen, you know, as a beautiful, you know, sexual human being, and in her own body, and the guys in their own body. You know, it wasn't being objectified. It was just being free to sort of to feel. And, you know, as an actress, you know, I don't think she said to me, she's never had the opportunity to sort of do that or be that. And that's it. And again, look, all over small acts, you have those little moments of joy and thing, because we are community. We sit down and eat. So the food all the way through, you know, you have food in all of the series. You have food, for example. It's a staple part, and music is the thing that keeps us going, helps us, you know, go. Listen, I am sure, I know this for a fact, that Aretha Franklin has saved people's lives. Fact. I know that James Brown has saved people's. I know Bob Marley has absolutely saved people's lives. There's not an if, there's not a but, or there's a maybe about it. And I think, you know, I don't know, it's just wonderful to put these things together within different narratives. I mean, like Red, White, and Blue, for example, with John Boyega playing Leroy Logan, you know, one of the highest ranking black policemen, and he was recruited in 1980. You've got to think about that because he's on the other side of the coin. He's trying to assimilate to sort of he's trying to assimilate to sort of infiltrate in order to sort of change things within the sort of, you know, the institution of the police, and he comes up against it, and it's his relationship with his father which actually is the hook, because you have two generations, and it's obviously it's a masculine sort of it's a story really about masculinity and black masculinity and father and son relationships, and how they try to resolve that within the context of the broader, wider society, racist society of the UK in the 80s.
Why don't you look back at me? Can't talk? Normally you guys are good at talking. Why don't you back me? Simple question. You normally speak. Why don't you back me? Huh?
Why do you back me? You're silent now. Why do you back me? I'm out there on the field with no backup. Answer the question. Are you deaf? We are not men. This is a struggle. I'm sick of this. Hey, man.
Get your hands off me.
You back me up, or you get slapped up. How about that? At ease.
So in Red, White, and Blue, John Boyega's fantastic performance. Can you speak a little bit, for which he won a Golden Globe Award for? Can you speak a bit about your preparation with him for that particular role?
Well, interestingly, with John in that role, I had seen John in Attack the Block, obviously a long time ago, it was about 10 years ago now. And I always thought, you know, this guy, he's like a Denzel. There's a quality, there's a thing about him that there's a real presence with this guy. And I thought, okay, well, hopefully we'll see him down the road. Maybe one day I'll work with him. So luckily with Red, White, and Blue, we got a chance to work together. And I think John at this time was very hungry. You know, he was hungry to sort of be someone, because, you know, he had been something, not someone before in Star Wars, and he wasn't sort of, he felt sufficiently sort of nourished with that project. And I mean, we know about the history about that as well. So he was hungry, he wanted to get his teeth into something. So Leroy Logan in Red, White, and Blue was the perfect opportunity, and the weight. And interestingly enough, when we got going in that, he was so comfortable. I think he hadn't been on a set like that before. With, you know, he'd never been on a set with that many black actors ever. He'd never been on a set with, no, never. Never been on a set with a black DP, black director. Never. So therefore, I felt that he kind of like, he said to me one day, we shot a scene with the family at the dinner table and whatnot. He said, "Oh, it's over. I didn't even feel like I was working." He said to me, I didn't even feel like the bit when he just before he goes to Hendon, which is the police training camp, that whole scene and everything else we did. He said, "Oh," he said, "I didn't think I was what." He had so much fun. We laughed. We collaborated. Oh, what would you do? What would you do? So many things, ideas are popping in that, because people are excited to sort of tell their story on a dinner table, because everyone had been on that table before, so they could give you these great ideas. So interestingly enough, what happened in the process of making Red, White, and Blue, of course, George Floyd thing, March happened in London. and during that time, and John was in Hyde Park. I imagine people know about John's speech in Hyde Park and how passionate he was. And after that speech, he came back, and then he wanted, obviously he was raring to go. And in some ways, how that situation happened, where he was playing Leroy Logan, and what was going on with John having that amazing sort of eruption in him, a lot of that happened because we were talking, I'm not taking credit for what John was doing, but a lot of things were being discussed at that time on that film set because of what we're talking about, a black man joining the police and the corruption, you see? So he had this thing churning and churning and churning. So we were influencing him and he was influencing us, because when he came back after that speech, then we did this amazing scene with Leroy Logan, with John being Leroy Logan, at the snooker table, where he goes into the police social club and has that confrontation. So it was amazing sort of, like I say, a fortunate sort of situation which occurred, which helped him to make that project sort of so memorable for me and him.
Yeah, I thought it was like, so like his performance was just so natural and authentic, and you were with him every step of the way, in navigating like this journey. And what was heartbreaking was the exchange with his father, you know. And I just thought it was so beautifully done. So I just wanted to kind of get perspective on how you all work together. And that makes perfect sense that, the performance is also informed by the times, because, I can only imagine him navigating that and playing that character at the same time. Wow.
But again, like I said, I think it was the Star Wars thing, his issues with Star Wars and how he'd been sidelined. You got me? At the same time, working on the set and having the situation where all of a sudden he's feeling, oh my goodness, this is possible, or I'm doing this, and we having conversations about the Leroy Logan, conversations about me two black men things anyway. Then all these things were stirring in him. So it was just I don't know. It was just wonderful to be in a situation where you're working with an artist who's conscious and can actually translate things which are around and were stirring. So we had a unique situation. I don't know how much more I can add to that.
So I wanted to talk to you a bit about Mangrove, which was entirely like a film that I felt absolutely had to be made, that we didn't know had to be made. I loved that I felt transported into this community, this particular community in this particular time in which I have never experienced and will never be able to experience. When you talk about the food took us there, the sense of community. I feel like I've been to that bar, I feel like I feel like I don't even know if it's a restaurant. I'm sorry. I feel like I've been to that restaurant, and eaten with those people. I feel like, these are my people, I really felt inside of it. And so, I wanted to tell you, it was just so authentically portrayed. And so I wanted to see how you decided to take Mangrove on, and how long had it been with you, and how you even prepare for a project like that.
The government believed the British state, with over 1 million black people living here now, is in grave danger. Yeah, right, truth, no?
But that shouldn't come as a surprise to any of us here. I think the Black Panthers need to actively prepare in order to defend the black institutions and businesses that can come under threat.
Like Frank Critchlow over at the Mangrove.
Come on, man. Frank is not interested in the movement.
What do you mean?
You have nothing but love for the man, Frank, all right? But that man blood run purer than politics. If you can call an inveterate gambler pure.
No, listen.
You're wicked,
Frank is a charming and gentle person who doesn't realize what he has done for our community in simply providing us the space. The Mangrove is now a focal point for black people to come and sit, talk, and exchange views. That is a rare and precious gift.
Yeah, I'm right. And that Betty made the best roti.
But seriously talking, we need to defend ourselves against Powell and his rivers of blood nonsense before that stream winds its way to our door.
He need to wind himself into the sewer. Damn rat. Talking foolishness.
Well, Mangrove was the first film that I wanted to make in the trilogy, in the anthology, excuse me, series, and that was the first sort of episode as such. It had to be Mangrove because of the magnitude of the importance of that particular story. This is a guy, Frank Critchlow, who opens a restaurant, a cafe, a hole in the wall in Ladbroke Grove, and him and his friends are held up for riot and affray in the highest court in the land. This was unprecedented. That people, through demonstrating against police harassment, get brought up on charges of riot and affray. Usually, the Old Bailey, which is the highest court in the land in the UK, is reserved for serious crimes, murder, terrorism, and treason. And here you have these people, these 9 people being put up for riot and affray in the highest court in the land. So that just tells you the state and what they want to do and how they want to make these people an example. Because they found that the Mangrove was a real breeding point for a breeding area for radicals, because the hoi polloi went there. It was a home away from home for people. Working class black people who went out want a taste of home and camaraderie. But at the same time, the hoi polloi were going there, intellectuals were going there, the Black Panther movement was going there, C.L.R. James was going. So people, I think their fear was that how these sort of intellectuals and thinkers could infiltrate and influence the working class. So they needed to close it down.
I felt like it was so familiar. Like, we have a similar, but it's a bar in my film. They make ribs there, so they cook food too. But it's a community. It's a source in the community. It's a community place. It's multi-generational, where people come to commune and be with each other. And one of the things that I loved about Mangrove is you would see the people spill out into the street, and that was completely familiar to me. It was just so beautiful. And so I felt like you completely captured that. And also this sense of institutional racism and bearing down on culture. And I was just blown away by how oppressive that it was, with folks that are really just coming together in the community and finding a place to commune. You want to take that away from them. So I loved it. I also thought it was impeccably cast again. So I wanted to talk to you about your work with the actors in this film. Letitia Wright is obviously in this film and did such an incredible job. And, I can go on and on about the actors. But I just want to talk, I guess my question is about the casting and working with the actors in this particular one.
Well, interesting enough, they would pray every day together, the cast. They would. Wow. And they knew they were doing something which was hadn't been done before, but also they wanted to represent these people, where most of them have passed. Only 2 that have survived, are Barbara Beast and Anthony James LaQuant. The 2 women, the rest have passed. And I think people just wanted to sort of serve them right. So there was a real kind of spiritual thing going on a camaraderie. They would support each other. It was wonderful because they became the Mangrove Nine. All those actors were really tight. And to work with them individually, of course, because individual scenes, but also to bring them together, it was just amazing. It was beautiful. We laughed a lot. Yeah, it's certain things I could say, something that I don't want to say because it's kind of private. I don't mean it in the way of being sort of reserved, but sometimes they look at me and I look at them and think, my goodness, we're doing this, and you know what, we're going to do it justice. So it was a lot of hard work getting it right, but also a lot of emotion. That was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it, actually. Yeah.
No, you can sense it. There's this camaraderie among them, and I'm like, how did he, achieve the sense of cohesiveness amongst the cast? And you just, informing that there was this natural sense. They were, you all were praying together and things like that.
People together at the same time. It was incredible.
I hear you.
It was incredible. People laugh, people saying things, it was just like mannerisms. I don't even know what it was. It just like boom. It's like boom. It was like boom. It was like boom.
Yeah.
And therefore, with that comfortability, then you just fly. You know, you're not feeling sort of self-conscious or blah blah or uncomfortable, you know, or whatever. It's to do with the waves, you know. Yeah, it's to do with the brain waves. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's an energy, it's spiritual, it's a coming together. I hear you 100%. It was beautifully done. I have to ask you about education.
Yes,
because I know I only have a certain amount of time with you.
Yeah.
I think education just really blew my mind because it's you know, as a Black person and also as a parent, you know, and as a Black child who's gone through the education system, it really hit home for me because, you know, again, it's a specificity of place, a specificity of time. But I, you know, obviously have navigated in my community, seeing Black children being oppressed by the educational system, you know, sadly. And so I was just, and I didn't, when I first saw Small Axe, I didn't let myself read any log lines, no synopsis, no anything.
I love you for that. I always try to do it. My wife is like, I want to read it first. No, can we not do that? No, I want to read it first. Can we just look at the movie? I don't know to preempt anything, please.
Well, I hear that, but it was a Steve. In fairness, it was a Steve McQueen project, so I'm like, I'm watching it anyway. But I just was blown away that you had taken that on. So I wanted to kind of get a sense of your personal connection to it and how you decided to tell this particular story.
Stephanie! Why are you making so much noise? Go away, Mummy. Mummy's at work. I've been kicked out of school. What? Oh, be quiet, Kingsley. That's not funny. Mummy's sleeping. Mummy's not here. She had to meet the headmaster and it's really shit. They're sending me to a stupid school. Stop swearing in the house. You're going to get us both killed. I don't care. Mummy's not here. Oh, my God. What's going on? I'm trying to tell you. They're sending me to a stupid school. They gave me this.
2 kids from my school got sent to a school like this.
What does it say?
Well, you want me to read it for you?
I've read it. I want to hear it.
You don't fool me. There is a school in Durance catering for kids with special educational needs, like not being able to read, Kingsley, since 1922.
I don't have special needs. I can read when I know the word. It's a school for idiots, isn't it?
There's a swimming pool.
I hate swimming.
Wait. After 60 years, suspicion and ignorance has given way to enlightenment and acceptance that Durance is first and foremost a school. What does that even mean? First and foremost a school. Why would you only put school in capital letters?
Well, the other day I caught myself saying, oh, when I was dyslexic. Well, I am dyslexic. I suppose what do I mean when I was dyslexic? And dyslexic for me was always about, at that time, was fear, pain, and hurt. you know. So I said, oh, that's why, because obviously now not, because I'm not going through the education system, and people are tentative, you know, when they could have been more attentive and understanding of what was going on, there wasn't that understanding. Anyway, so I based the character Kingsley, the young boy, in education on me. What my life would have been like if I had been born in the you know, mid 70s, late to mid 70s, mid to early 70s, because what happened was that my life at school wasn't great. Okay, so I was on a fast track, as you were, to sort of say, okay, manual labor. Nothing wrong with manual labor, fantastic manual labor, but my options, that was my option. I wasn't given options. I was given an option. When I, you know, it had nothing to do with my intellect, but everything to do with a situation which is called dyslexia. But that also could be an advantage of dyslexia, of course, what we'll talk about later. So I'll be very quick on this one. I suppose what I want to say is that I based character Kingsley on me if I had been born 10 years earlier, and therefore I was very connected to that story. My mum was my mum working 2 jobs in a National Health Service and as a cleaner. My father working for as a builder for London Transport. So all of that was real. My sister being this very bright student, wanted to go to fashion school, and you know, and me. So that was all based on my upbringing as a working class black kid. But the fact of the matter is that I didn't go to educationally subnormal school. I'm sure I would have done in the 70s, but the reason why I didn't go to educationally subnormal school, bust out there and being dumped upon, the thing is that West Indian children, vast amount of black children who went to those educated subnormal schools did not need to be there. They were being downgraded in IQ. They were being basically put there because of their so-called behavioral issues. So this has all been tried and tested. Actually in the UK tonight, there's a documentary that I produced called Subnormal, which is about how the British government knew what they were doing was wrong. You know, downgrading black people's IQs and busting out the educated subnormal schools, but didn't do anything about it. And the people who stopped that happening was the Black Parents Movement and Black Parents Associations. They stopped educated subnormal schools existing. So they didn't just save black people's lives, they saved white people and other people's lives too, because because of that small act of these mothers and fathers coming together and stopping this. They made my life possible. So this is all about these heroes who don't have capes, who aren't followed on Instagram, but they're the ones who basically, you know, do the work. It's an amazing story. It's an amazing story.
And I love that you did that. You know, there's so much that I appreciate about the film. Kingsley's fantastic. But what I was really taken with was the women in the community that came together to create this Saturday school to educate and also educate the parents why this is wrong. You know, so, and I had those women growing up. You know, I'm here because of people in the community that said you can, you know. I didn't have, there weren't examples of Black women directors in the South, you know, coming from the South at that time that I remember. You know, I'm there because of the community. So I was just so appreciative of this film. And again, it was impeccably done and really spoke to me emotionally and resonated. So thank you.
I went to those I went to those Saturday schools. They were amazing, man. There were people out of people's kitchens. They did any and everything they could to fight the state, and they won. It's amazing what we can do when we come together. You know, it's beautiful. So,
You're right.
It was my honor to make that picture. It was my honor. It was my honor.
Well, it was absolutely my honor to receive it. I just wanted to, you know, we have to close. I have to let you go, unfortunately. But I just wanted to tell you that I'm, you know, again, really grateful for these stories. They are about particular communities that, you know, have been organized and come together around some kind of injustice, you know, and the communities that are not often seen again. And you have managed to navigate maintaining, you know, times that are of the past, but are essential for us to know about now, and made them feel relevant and present. So Thank
kind.
you.
Oh, you're very kind. But also, it's about we and how we can come together, and to do. We can achieve anything if we just come together, and that's what Small Axe is about. You know, if they're the big tree, we come together. We can do anything if we come together. And thank you so much for this conversation, which is great. I didn't really see it as a Q&A. I thought it was a great conversation because I'm a huge fan of yours, and we worked with the same actress, Nicole Beharie, and it's amazing. And you're from the South, so therefore, there you go.
I am. I see my folks in your work.
Take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.